So returning to work was an adventure in itself, having had to deal with um, loss of depth perception and peripheral vision for the first time. I actually had to get a lens for my left eye because with my right eye being a dominant eye, I didn't realize how bad my vision in my left eye was being corrected, and it wasn't that clear, and that it was immediately apparent. It was better once I got the proper prescription. And going back to work was, they asked me the doctor asked me what I did. I said, well, I talk, and this is what I do. I get up on stage, I prepare a PowerPoint presentation, and I deliver that presentation about 45, 50 minutes. And about every other day, I have a presentation on history, culture, nature, and I was cruising in the Caribbean. So I would start out talking about the geology. And if we're going to the Lesser Antilles, this is a subduction zone volcanic arc. I'll start with plate tectonics. If I'm going along the coast of Mexico, I'll spend less time on plate tectonics, but a lot more time on the development of changes in sea level caused by the periods of glaciation the planet's experienced, and how it has created along the coast there shelves of coral, making the second longest barrier reef in the world, the Mesoamerican reef system, which starts all the way up at the northern end of the Yucatan and then goes down all the way to Honduras. And a lot of our cruise was along that barrier reef. So, and I talk about a little introduction to what we can see in the natural world, and then get into prehistory, the first peoples to come across from the old world, the migration, the different, and how they got to the islands, which was much later, and then basically big history, talk about the land, tell the story of how the people got to the land, and then tell the story about what happened once they got here, and how it developed, and basically without having any written record in the Americas until the coming of the Spanish and Columbus, that momentous event known as the Columbian Exchange that started a period of settlement coming from Europe and basically overtaking the pre-contact population in number. And that story is something that is often glossed over. And that's one of the points I would always make, was if you're not teaching history, warts and all, it's propaganda. It's not history. So this is the other thing, and I often polled the audience that would come to my talks. Do you learn more from your successes or your failures? And it's not even a close vote. We learn more from our mistakes. And if you're not talking about mistakes and the low points of history, you can't really learn from it. And that's the point. And it's got a good response, but it's something that I took great care in creating these presentations. I have a limited amount of time to talk about a lot of history, so I would choose what I could talk about and try to make it as entertaining as possible, but without glossing over some of the missteps. And trying to relate past events that have echoes and ripples forward. Mistakes we're making today that were made before, and if we knew more about them, maybe we wouldn't make them again. That, to me, is the importance of history. And I also talked a lot about nature, and one of the other things that I would do, I had sort of free reign to do enrichment things, and that one of them was wildlife viewing, and would have, weather permitting, on the deck of the ship, not every day, but almost every day, depending on the time of when the ship came in and how long we were in port, whether it was daylight or not. It doesn't make sense to do it at night, but to see whatever nature we could see. And if we're closer to land, there's a good chance of seeing more stuff, but you never know. That was something I couldn't predict. I mean, we saw whales, we saw sea turtles, we saw sharks, all kinds of dolphins, jumping fish, flying fish, lots of birds. And that's something that I'm become sort of learned from experts that were ornithologists and naturalists over the years, and have studied on my own. And even with one eye, aided by one side of my binoculars, that I could see stuff and knew what to anticipate. And if people saw something and took a picture of it, I'd help identify it. So this is a way for me to further enrich the experience of the people on the ship. Basically, my role was to prepare people with history and culture of what they were going to encounter, as well as explain and make them aware of what they can see in the natural world, like a tour guide. And I had not done much in the Caribbean until I started with the last company I worked for, because most vacations on mass market cruise ships or trips I did there were about beach and fun in the sun with incentive groups. But here, really talking about history and culture and nature, only on deluxe cruise ships do they put people on stage like me that are here just to enrich their experiences and not to sell anything. And I'm not selling anything. I'm helping to prepare them for if they want to learn more, and have discussion with the guests. I would eat dinner often with guests and make myself available anytime they saw me to ask me questions. And it was a role that sort of developed out of what I'd been doing in my past. But I was able to get up on the deck and I was able to point out wildlife. I was able to do my presentations, but it took a while for me to get my strength back. And every day I would be up on deck walking. I would have a regular exercise routine, do some stretching, got back into my yoga routine, got back into lifting light weights and doing resistance work, doing core work. And my strength came back as well as it could. It was one of the things that I found out, that trying to walk without depth perception impacted the already painful osteoarthritis I had on my left side of my left knee and my left hip. And it was exacerbated because I did not really know I was not able to see how to place my foot. I was either short stepping or long stepping, and both of them had impact that traveled up my legs that really, despite the fact that I was trying to do the same yoga routines and stretches, having not been able to exercise or walk for a few weeks when I had the surgery, and then slowly coming back from it. But anytime on the ship, it was great because ADA has everything pretty much flat. If it's not, it's really well marked and you can get around it. But walking, for example, on streets when I went ashore, not having depth perception, anything with cobblestones or curbs or undulations, it all looked flat to me. And it was really, that sort of exacerbated my pain on my left side. But great food, easy to get around. It was a great place for me, and still get paid to actually be able to work my way back through this. And I still go swimming now that I'm in Indiana. I go to the local Y and swim laps 3 times a week, and I will try to continue to do that as long as I can. But getting back in the water, I started scuba diving when I was 12 and got certified the next year, and actually had to wait until I turned 15 to get my C card. I started snorkeling when I was 9, and I had my mask. I'd been in the Caribbean the year before and had been diving and snorkeling, and by February, once I got the okay to return to the water from my doctors in Miami, let's go try. And the very first dive I did was off of the Yucatan in the Costa Maya on this second largest barrier reef. And the very first dive, and I go down with my eye closed, I open my eye, and actually, so I had some vision with my right eye was a little off to the side. But when I was underwater with the refraction, it was much closer to center. This has moved. So I'm talking to you at the end of October of 2023. Now it's pointed out to this side slightly. And the retina on the inside of my eye is much, much more, there's no vision there at all because the radiation has killed that. And so it's pointed away, and the area that I can see out of, I found out when I went to the doctor for a correction to my lens, which it needed it already after about 6 months, slightly, but it has improved it. And he went, oh, let me check your other eye. And he says, you got a cataract there. Well, the last time I went to the eye specialist in Miami, they told me that I would require, once the tumor's gone, and it's probably about that stage now. I don't see the rippling as much anymore, but it's not been officially examined. But once the tumor is gone, they would probably have to do some surgery to realign the eye a little bit, and also remove the debris. Cataract, is the word they used, and yes, there's a cataract in there. So to regain maybe 50% vision. That's not in the plans right now because it's as my story continues, spoiler alert, it's now already, I have 2 lesions in my liver, and that's what's being addressed now, and that's why I can't work anymore. But more on that later. So the first dives I did, it was easy, calm days. I've been diving all my life, and starting in the 70s, early 70s, the equipment was so much more basic and everything's so much more advanced. There's computers. You don't need to know your Navy dive tables anymore. You don't really need to learn the gas laws. And this is all stuff that I was learning at age 13. So when I got to high school physics, it's like, oh, I already know these laws. But the equipment is so much more comfortable. And I'm sure I could still dive today, right now. There are other things that I need to do, which is get treatment for my liver. But I do swim still. And oh man, it was just so great to be back in the water. I would go snorkeling. Each time I got to that side of the Caribbean, I would dive in Roatan, I would dive in Costa Maya, the same operators that I'd been diving with the year before. And I came in with an eye patch, and what are you, pretending to be a pirate? Well, in fact, my son of a good friend, he's actually my niece's half-brother. As soon as he saw a picture of me with the eye patch, he says, is it too early to start calling you Petey the Pirate? And well, why not? And especially here I am talking about piracy and privateers in the Caribbean on my presentations. And yeah, the irony of this is not lost on me. And then I would let them know that I've already been nicknamed Petey the Pirate. And sure, make fun of yourself. It's why not? We all need to do a little bit more of that, I think. But the dive operators, the same operators I dove with the year before, they knew I was experienced and had been diving since the 70s, and sure, why not? And really had no issue at all. Again, it's the vision. I could open my eye and actually see a little bit better under the water, and I had corrective vision mask, than on land. That really was a sort of a positive. But I went diving and snorkeling as often as I could. I have some wonderful underwater photographs that I took with a camera that I'll intersperse in with some of my the video here. And still did wildlife viewing for the whole time, and really had a great 2.5-month contract. So back to work, back at it. The one thing that the doctors in Miami, despite, I mean, they work with eyes, but the thing that they were most concerned with was the risk from the biopsy that this could metastasize in my liver, very likely. So I get off there, it's March, I get a biopsy, clean, great. I go see the doctors in Miami in early April. Now they gave me the news that, yeah, that's about 40% the tumor's shrunk, and you're going to have a couple procedures in order to get some vision back there, but all proceeding well and no cancer yet in the liver, and keep on doing what you're doing. And I did. And I went back on ship on the 6th of April and came back on May 4th. Got on the ship in Miami and got off the ship in Athens. I did an Atlantic crossing, again, a really good contract, and took a break in May. Drove up to Indiana, see my parents. They were in Florida in the winter, but then they moved back actually to Indiana. Mom was involved in, my parents, they hit a deer, jumped in front of them, and the airbag damaged my mother's lungs and broke a couple of ribs, and she was on oxygen, but she's 90 years old. She's turned 90 in July and is out walking and got her strength back, and she got off that oxygen because she wanted to get off, and she did everything she needed to do with help. And that was when I got home in May. That was tried to help take care of her, got her walking, which was my exercise, and helped her with that, walked with her, and now she walks on her own. I mean, it's a matter of her realizing what was good for her. Then I went back to work again in early June. This was Mediterranean again, and wow, it was great stuff. Got off the ship in Athens, visited some friends in Germany, and then flew back and went to Florida because this is where I had my doctors for my eye doctors, and I was intending to see them again about the eye, and that's when I had my next scheduled MRI, and that's when lesions were detected in my liver, early August of this year. So that's the end of my travels. I knew this was serious. There is no cure. It's only a matter of trying to delay it as long as possible. And there are certain things that are more successful than others. And this is what I will try to talk about in my next segment on living with and fighting cancer.